My name is Dean, and we're back. It is Monday. We were busy all weekend, and we got a full deck again today. Caryma's on her way by. She's just getting ready to hit the link. I just got to know from her she's going to join us. We've got a couple of guests, not just Caryma, but please welcome to the program a fella who teaches people how not to hate each other online. He's an educator. He's got his master's in a bunch of different things. He's the owner-operator of a consulting company called Mediated Reality, and we're here to talk about online radicalization with him and Caryma and a few other people. Please welcome Jesse Miller, ladies and gentlemen. He's in the house, and his office is very well appointed, by the way, Jess. You got a hell of an office there, like a really nice earth tone background. You got some wrought iron, you got some wood. Yeah, the feng shui is excellent, by the way.
I appreciate that. It's organized, and anytime my wife comes in here, she tends to organize it better than I left it. So it's always presentable. I think that's the key.
Did you set anything up in that office? Be honest.
I actually built the wall. This was a garage door last year, and it was just way too noisy. So in the summer, I ripped out the garage door. I put in the windows, and I'm more than handy in the academic sense. But
the pineapples, Jesse.
I was just going to ask too.
Yeah. Did you? No way you put the pineapples there. I mean, you can talk about how cool of a builder you are, but there's no way.
That's a winter special that was put in there for the organization of it. But I do have my autographed Christopher Walken. I've got a Lego shoe somewhere that I built. I can't find it now. There we go.
I see it.
And it's the Adidas. And then I've got books that people always accuse, like, did you read all those books? I've read every book in my office. Doesn't mean they were all good, but I paid for them, so I'm going to use them.
I wonder, it's funny because I sometimes when I see, like, because everybody does these podcasts, video casts. Lachlan Cross is here as well, again, 95.7 Cruise FM.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Ryan Lindley, Sheeple Shepherd podcast is here. But I always wonder that in these videos, like, you see RoomRater.com, and it's like, rate the room that this guy's doing. And I see people just fill their shot with books, and I'm like, when you listen to some people talk that are in front of the books, you're like, there's no way you read any of them, like none.
Well, if I look at this, I've got No Filter, the inside story about Instagram. I've got one called Sexting Panic, which was written by a colleague of mine. I've got Barack and Michelle Obama, which is, I think it should be a civics lesson to read books that were written by educated people who had professional experience in politics. Mm-hmm. And then I've got textbooks, like I'm reading Social Media, Pedagogy, and Practice. Like, I don't want to read this, but I feel like
Friday nights at your house must be wild.
What is that book called again, Jess?
Social Media, Pedagogy, and Practice. It's basically so we can teach people how to use social media in effective ways. And it's a bunch of varied opinions so that it's not one author's BSing everything through.
Good, because I read a ton, and like I'm a voracious reader. It's like I put one down and I pick another one up. I try to suggest a bunch of books to my friends. None of them read any. Locke might actually get into a couple of books, but most of the books I read, I give to my friends. They're like, dude, I got 5 pages in. I didn't fucking have any idea what I was reading. But highly suggest this one. Just read it. It's called 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. Have you read this book? Fuck, it's an incredible
I have not read that
Your
one.
Your camera's backwards. We can't really read that.
It's backwards?
Image. Yeah.
I got a mirror. Dude, it doesn't matter. You see it. It's mirrored.
I wish I read more. If we're being honest, I wish I read more.
Read to lead, dude. Everybody that reads is a leader. Everybody that reads is way smarter than people that don't. And I find this too. No, it's true.
That explains a lot.
Caryma reads a lot. I read a lot. I'm sure that Jesse reads a lot. And Caryma joins us, by the way. Caryma Saad, ladies and gentlemen. She's in the his yet again. We're just talking about reading. Caryma, sorry, I sent you the link late. Thought I sent it to you earlier.
You're a reader.
So what are you reading? Like, I find that I'm in that stage of my life where I'm talking to people and they're like, what are you reading? And they're like, oh, I'm reading this, and this. I'm like, interesting. And then I walk away from those conversations like, fuck, am I in the what are you reading stage of my life?
Yeah. Pretty soon you're going to start watching Oprah.
Yeah, what are you watching?
Are you an audiobook guy at all, Dean? I've never asked you that.
Huge, audiobook guy. Like when I'm driving kids and back, I can't stop. Like, I don't know. I know there are a lot of people that say, fuck, I hate reading. Can't stand reading. I can't stop reading and taking in information. And this is why I wanted to have you on, because this is one of the things that I've been trying to figure out, right? Caryma Saad joins us. She's live in Ottawa. We're going to get to the Ottawa stuff in just a second. But what we've seen kind of break down over the past little while had I not immersed myself in, some of the cardinals, like, Seneca's moral letters, Epictetus, real leadership stuff, if I hadn't gotten into like the neuroscience stuff with Sam Harris, and if I hadn't legitimately prior to this thing, I was on this big kick about understanding life and trying to not let small things get to me and being able to manage. And the only way that I could get to this point was by reading. Like legitimately reading, which is really hard for people to understand, because they go, why do you read so much? I'm like, because I don't want to be fucking confused. And the more you read, the less confused you are. And at the same time, I don't know if you feel this way, Jesse, at the same time, you're like, holy fuck, was I ever living in ignorance for a long period of time?
Yeah, I think with reading, especially as you grow with it beyond assigned reading, especially if you can get out of the high school lane and get into textbooks, you branch out into what you read for your own purposes, where your own thoughts go. But at the same time, like, I pride myself on that. I have bookcases filled with books that I didn't want to read, but I did because I want to understand the other point of view. I want to see where somebody's coming from. And especially if you can get to the bare bones of an author's intent and realize that sometimes authors purely want to indoctrinate an audience. I mean, we can pivot this to social medias equally. The blogger who just rants and raves, the person who sits there and subscribes to every conspiracy theory known to our everyday self. You can manipulate audiences, and reading is where it started. It started with the fear of the printing press. And so within that, when we consider the idea that the church controlled the ability to read, even to teach reading, and then we get to our 20th century and limiting individuals, especially minority groups, in the ability to become literate, more and more we have to consider that some people will read, but they'll still read within the silo of affirmation, what they're looking for. And the internet now has made that easier than ever, because you had to be accountable as a reader. You used to have to be able to return your library books without facing a fine. Now you can just download whatever and subscribe to a belief just because it works for you.
Mm-hmm. That's such a great point. And I don't think, and I'm glad we're talking about reading, and I'm glad that your office was the segue. Because we do what we do, right? Like, we make a living online. Caryma has, and we've all been the targets of these groups that are radicalized. We've all sat and watched in disbelief. The one thing that Lachlan talks about quite a bit is, how did we get here? Like, when you look at, and listen, we don't have to go too far to get your opinion on what happened in Ottawa this weekend, as I've just bring up one of your tweets from this week. Tell me you're a Proud Boy without telling me you're a Proud Boy. And
thanks.
You're welcome. And this one, oh, it's the same one. Never mind. In this picture of fuck Trudeau, which you're dressing this guy down in Vancouver. And I mean, I know where you stand, your politics stand, but as someone that teaches about online harm, as someone that teaches about how to prevent it, as someone that teaches, reads, and you taught at UVic for some time. I know you're taking a break. As an educator, when it comes to radicalization, what lens did you look at what happened this weekend through?
Well, first and foremost is through the threat assessment lens. Like, what do our threat assessments look like in this space? And I've been lucky enough in my work to not only train in threat assessment with digital threat assessment, but also just the idea of where we start to see polarization. And to be fair, when we look at how this started west going east, the trucker convoy, there was already a bubbling of discontent when it comes down to what this actual event was about. Was it about mandates? Was it about vaccinations? Was it about Jesus taking the wheel and retaking Canada? And we started seeing more and more of that online as we got to that point where truckers did eventually, convey themselves into Ontario. And you started seeing a lot more of the social media posts that would traditionally stay in a deeper side of a right spectrum. And so let's just say 2015, Trudeau's elected. There's probably about maybe 300 posts on social media or on Instagram about F Trudeau. Now we're at 56,000 over a 7-year period. It's not a huge growth. So within that, the idea of two incidents, let's say 2 elections, and him, guiding the helm throughout a pandemic. For some reason, there's still this very Americanized trope that our leader is not a leader of a parliamentary structure. It's the idea that he gets to make all the choices and he's to blame. And so when you see parts of this, the targeting of an individual, and you see the ideas that it's not just the Liberal Party or the amalgamation of parties in a minority government, there is a lot of illiteracy that goes into what being a Canadian and participating in our society looks like. And that's where this became very interesting to me. Social media played a huge role, but how much of it was actually Americanized? How much of it was based on the idea that we have these fundamental rights that are based on a constitution and not necessarily a charter? And those are the big gaps that we're seeing right now, the civics and the literacies that go into what a person's rights actually do look like.
Jesse, I have a question about that, because that's one thing that I've been bothered by a lot with this whole convoy and this, whatever they want to call it, freedom rally or whatever. I call it an anti-vax rally this morning. That heated up the phones. I have been very bothered.
Oh, there's Caryma's laugh. I love it. There you go.
I don't necessarily I'm not a big fan of Trudeau either. And I understand that people are, they have the right to protest and fine, go there. And I what I said this morning was, let's just call it what it is. It's an I hate Justin Trudeau anti-vax rally. And I've said more than a couple of times on this podcast, the thing that disappoints me about it, because maybe there is some benefit to what they're doing, or at least there was a seed of a benefit to what they were doing at the beginning stages of this, and then a bunch of things just sort of glommed onto it. But this American rhetoric, this mega Trump bullshit that sort of creeped its way into the narrative.
Dude,
and
it
all
ran
their
the
talking
show.
point. Yeah, like why? I mean, I understand that what you're basically saying is that it comes from a level of ignorance about how we conduct ourselves politically and legally in Canada. But is there more to it? Like, I don't understand why we're leaning so heavy on the fake news, like all that crap. Like, is there a reason why it's saturated? Like, I hear this stuff all the time.
Yeah, I'm inclined to say that it's been bubbling in certain aspects of Canadian digital use for the better part of 6-7 years since Trump's rhetoric kind of became the go-to counterpoint. But that said, when you consider just the idea that there's a positioning of belief that you have rights that are given to you by God in certain ways. That's a very Americanized approach to our democracy. And in that, that's not the way Canada operates. And so, yes, we use the terminology in our anthem, we use it in our charter, but at the end of the day, we don't have amendments the same way the United States does. And so with this idea that our rights are being taken away from. My freedom today is the exact same as it was prior to the pandemic. I'm limited in my privileges if I don't do things like get a vaccination. But when people do this whole thing of like they're walking around a Walmart and they're like, I'm allowed to film. You don't even know the fact that that's a private business, that you're trespassing, that you don't understand these things because you think public is somewhere that you can just exist as an entity, and when it comes down to it, your rights are infallible. But the reality of it being is that we have privileges, and my privileges that allow me to go to a business, that allow me to go and function in society, those are limited in certain ways right now because of a health pandemic. And so within that, when people say, well, no shirts, no shoes, no service, like you have to remember that was a white supremacist trope in its own way, because it was introduced when the Civil Rights Act came into play, saying we can't limit people of color coming into our business, so let's limit people who don't have shoes and shirts. And that became the idea of controlling individuals who would come into your business. So the same thing now, the idea of the mask mandate, when somebody locks onto that and they're like, well, I'm being infringed upon and now I'm in a minority. Yes, technically, but again, you're choosing not to follow a law. And if that law is something that can change, which is, again, the benefit of being a democracy, and it can be fluid, it doesn't mean that at the end of the day, your rights are being infringed upon. You are deemed to be a risk to public health. And that right there is still very much an entitlement piece, which then again has a bit of an American rhetoric to it.
Yeah, they've confused entitlement with freedom.
Yeah,
exactly. Very much
the water. Yeah.
And if that isn't indicative to a free society, I don't know what is. Having
Great
that
point.
privilege.
Yeah. Great. Go ahead, Caryma. Sorry.
It's funny, like the distinction between even public and private property. Hearing you mention that, because there's more than one live stream where a so-called freedom fighter is arguing with police or an employee about what constitutes public and private, and just that base understanding isn't there. And it's also very selective, because at other times, they will take a piece of public property and say, well, this is now, we're treating it as private and we're going to control and restrict access to who is able to be here and exist in this space because we're here and that's our freedom to do so. So it is all very self-serving. Like, it's ignorant and it's self-serving. That's the point I'm trying to make.
That's a great point. It's true. I think you made it.
just as a note to add to that, I mean, just consider, I mean, the reality behind it is when we talk about the limitations of the individual, there have been things that have been put into place in our history to limit individuals. Like in British Columbia here, we had rules in our province in the 1950s and 60s that limited the ability for Indigenous passengers to ride on the upper decks, right? So that segregation piece has always existed in our culture. It doesn't mean that the United States was unique in that, but we in Canada had that as well in certain ways. But we, unfortunately, as Canadians, always kind of go to that, we're better than. And I think what we've noticed here in the past 2 weeks is that there are groups of individuals in Canada who are okay waving a swastika, who are okay waving a Confederate flag, who are okay with tropes around hate. Now, again, this isn't about the individual prime minister. It's a minority government. And if you were able to sit down with your MP and you're able to get your MP to sway, you could get change. That's the beauty of our parliamentary system. We're not locked in for 4 years in a majority where that's the person you have. But if you flip it around and you consider some of the limitations people have, I mean, I saw one comment here in the stream that says, being limited in your interprovincial travel. You can be limited to interprovincial travel in Canada. It doesn't give you the right to do it just because you have this endemic idea that you're able to travel from coast to coast without infringement.
Yeah, you can. It's reasonable limitations, right? It's like legitimately the first sentence in the first section of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It's like,
exactly.
Hey, listen, all this stuff's cool, but if you impinge on the freedom of the people around you and the greater good, your freedoms don't exist. They then become a privilege that we can take away. It's not a right. But how the fuck did we get here? Like, these things have all existed. Yeah. You talked about 1950. We know it happened in 1918. But let me just play you a sample of the crazy that I'm asking you how we got here. This is from Caryma today. If I'm not mistaken, Caryma, this is a guy who was drinking gas and there for Jesus and the Communist Party and had some kazoos.
This sounds like that great setup.
It's like you
makes sense. We don't even need to see the video.
I think he's anti-communist, despite the prevalence of soup kitchens and community sort of food tables here. That he's anti-communist. I think. I mean, I don't know that it was his truck.
Had gas.
I want kazoo is where my cringe factor came in. I was like, kazoo. Oh no!
Well, I don't even know if you call it a kazoo, but the video is great. Go ahead, Caryma.
I want to believe that it was not fuel in the canister that he's drinking. But I do note that they will resell old fuel canisters. So at some point it may have contained fuel.
Yeah, okay.
We'll see.
So this is a video, Caryma, and this is like, this guy didn't get here by not reading extremist bullshit online. Sorry, but watch this. Got a little sign on the U-Haul: "Who will rise up for me against the evildoers? Jesus is king." Couple hammer and sickles that are like no Russians, and then the link to some Jesus website. Explain how.
Red flags.
Oh yeah, just a few. Drinking gasoline was fine though. I had no issues. But like, explain how a normal individual, because
kazoo,
you got, I don't know what it is. You got normal individuals like seemingly us, trying to fucking figure this whole thing out, that are appalled. Like, Caryma, you're appalled on a daily basis at the weirdo extremist portions of this, like Ramona Dadula, like the people that have a firm grip on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but they're 100% wrong, but they're going to argue in your face that they're right, and they're willing to die being wrong. So, like, we've seen this kettling of a certain group of people in the alt-right. How has this happened, and how has the radicalization process taken place through social media and online? Because I think we're coming to a head here with like how we look at and social media is governed and treated in this country after this. I really do.
Partially. I think most importantly, we have to keep in mind here that Canada is always a little bit behind where our streams are are seen. And so the stream of the United States, their 2016 to 2020 was a roller coaster. And so we had a number of Canadians who did subscribe to Trump rhetoric. They very much saw and believed it. We actually had Facebook groups called Republican Party of Canada and Trump for Canada, all those kind of things that kind of pop up. And again, those are individuals who can just create a page and it becomes something. But the thing is that we've always had extremism on both sides of the spectrum in Canada. And the thing is that once it's emboldened in certain ways and you can get people kind of nodding along and you can see not only flags being flown, but at the end of the day, even gear, merchandise, and things like that, you start to get aligned individuals who will then say, hey, I'm part of this as well. And so whether it's InfoWars or whether it's subscribing to anything that's alt-right or alt-left or wherever again it is, radicalization does exist. And I'll just give you an example. I mean, in 2014, I was driving on the highway of tears between Prince Rupert and Prince George. And as much as it's disheartening to drive that highway and see the billboards for missing persons, I also saw the billboards for 9/11 was fake, was staged. Here's where Jesus is coming in. And so again, in certain areas of Canada, you'll see the crosses in the fields. You'll see the billboards that draw attention towards something that might not be a liberal mainstream dialogue in a major city. And so when it does converge in a place like Ottawa, that's where a little bit more of the back of the Alberta bumper sticker is staring out at the everyday metropolis person.
There you go,
Jesse.
It's Alberta. I keep saying, it's Alberta. It's Alberta.
He brought up BC, and I used to drive that highway. I know exactly what he's talking about. Listen, it's everywhere. You got nut jobs in Ottawa or in Ontario too. You guys, I'm telling you right now. Okay, I have a question, but first I want to bring up a article that I wrote that's quite brilliant, Jesse.
Okay.
And I realized, I even said it in the article. I said, hey, listen, I realize that this is a much more nuanced conversation than what I'm going to present here, but we'll leave that for the smarter individuals in the crowd. But I went on to talk a little bit about how I think democracy is leading to extremism because there's this huge middle in our country where you might be a little bit conservative. You probably tend to have some liberal morals, but you feel unrepresented politically at the local level, at the provincial level, and at the federal level. And I had a sort of an aha moment when we had Max Fawcett.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or Max Fawcett on. I said, you got to explain to me why all these parties are always geared so heavily towards these extreme sort of sides of the left and the right. And he said, well, it's because the crazies are the ones that go to their wallet and give them money. Yeah. And I'm like, holy shit, that makes so much sense based on where we are. So all politics is based on that because I don't know about you. Raise your hand if you've ever given any money to a political. I have never. I would never in my right fucking mind give any of those dicks money. Not a penny. They don't care what I say. They have no idea. They have no idea what I think. They don't care. They don't listen. All policies, everything politically is motivated towards the people that put money in their pockets, which means, in my opinion, look at Pierre's announcement. Holy shit, he's going hard, right? They are definitely going to the extreme side of the views on the left and the right politically. And then there's this huge unrepresented middle. Is there any truth to that, or did I just completely pull that out of my ass?
No, I think you're dead on in the sense that if you look at the 2018 American Congress elections, I mean, there was a lot of people who ran who realized that the Trump rhetoric would get them into where they want to be. That's just positioning for power, and we're going to see the leadership for the Conservative Party go the same way. You know, Maxime Bernier was too far right at the time. And now is a perfect time to get a lot of these individuals who are very fearful of aspects of the pandemic, whether it be economy, whether it be health mandates, whether it be at the end of the day, vax pass or not. But the thing is, like, I'll be very clear. I'm fully vaccinated. I've had my third. I have no issue giving a barcode to somebody and saying, hey, let me into this restaurant if that's the way things are. But that said, is that would I prefer not to have to announce that? Would I prefer not to have to announce something with my health? Of course not. But again, how does it affect me? It doesn't affect me in any way except for the fact that I can acknowledge I'm playing by the expectations of the majority of our society, and I'm aligning with the science. So within that, to your point of going to the politicians, there are politicians out there who will recognize that their riding will not be won by them unless they align with what make sense for their constituents. And a lot of their constituents are saying, hey, I don't want this, and I don't think that this, COVID thing is real. Or they're willing to say that it was created by a government or whatever be, right?
What do you make of, to that point, what do you make of how media has, mainstream media, not us, we're not media, we're bloggers and just everyday people that like to make a difference. But what do you make of the way mainstream media has gassed this whole thing? Because I really feel like, and I don't like mainstream media because I look at them like they're power centers. You're very media literate. That's where your education is. You're an educator when it comes to the media. What I saw, and I tweeted this morning, I mean, the We scandal this last couple of years, one of the more egregious fucking things I've ever seen when it comes to taking advantage of individuals and misrepresenting things. That got no play, like none. And we've been buried in, what do these truckers want? Trucker Convoy 2020, the furthering of a narrative that it was legitimately a lie, right? These were not truckers. And now you're seeing people in the 90 like us go, fuck them. And I don't know if you watched any of the coverage this weekend. Caryma, she's fearless, and I think she demands some respect in that arena so they don't fuck with her as much. But all the Glenn McGregors and the Sean, what's his last name? Sean O'Sullivan. I can't remember his name.
Yeah,
that's
the one.
O'Shea.
Yeah. The Irish guy. Anyway, I was all these comeuppance that people are getting when they're trying to do their job, and I kept thinking to myself this weekend when I was watching, I'm like, well, of course, right? Of course, because we've been inundated with people making this into a click factory, click farm, and are legitimately emboldening these people to get rewarded by saying, yeah, we acknowledge you. Like this, the fact that these guys were acknowledged the way they were and are continued to be held up like they're a legitimate movement blows my mind, Jesse.
Yeah, and to be fair to that point, we all know that traditional media has to position for advertisement, has to position itself for the people who are in charge. But that said, I mean, I appreciate good journalism, and there are a lot of very good journalists across Canada who might work for CBC or CTV or Global or whoever it be. But I'm more concerned, and I do a lot of media. I never do B-roll footage. I never do the walking down the sidewalk so we can get the angsty shot because one, I know it's going to be used against me at some point in time, but two, it just seems like you're just trying to fill the void when you could be continuing the narratives, continuing the story. And so there are a lot of things that happen in our media in Canada that is very, again, mimicked of any other group, whether it's the BBC or whether it's Fox News or CNN. You're looking to fill that time. And that's where 24-hour news really did kick all of us in the ass, because you went from having the 6 o'clock news where you worked all day to get the story, to get as much as you can, to make sure you weren't held liable. And then you had editors and producers who said, no, we did our homework. We made sure that we went to print. We went to 6 o'clock with this story, and we are going to stand by it. To the 24-hour thing where it's just the snippets, let's go to the reporter in the field who's standing there going, I got nothing. But if I look at what Carmina did this weekend and the idea of actually physically being down there, taking great photos, that is the social media journalism we're looking for, in the sense that individuals can then give us both angles, 360 degrees, figure out what's happening with what's on the ground, and not just trying to set up for the shot because you're going to get it. I mean, I don't like the idea that you're setting up for a shot and you're going to get the lowest hanging fruit screaming at you in the background. That's a guarantee. But if you could have somebody who's eloquent on the other side of the truckers convoy and say, here's why we're here, here's what our end goal is, here's what our mandates are.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Can you repeat people from the trucker convoy what?
If you had somebody from the trucker convoy who is eloquent to stand in front of the microphone and say, here's what I want. If you had that person. But I didn't see that.
Please let us know.
I didn't, but I did see a bit of that in Quebec City. And the thing is, there were some individuals on the Francophone side who were very clear. Here's how this is affecting Quebec. And that's where I thought it was interesting. I watched the CTV feed and it went Ottawa, Quebec City, Toronto. Not a lot from the West Coast, which is, on brand for CTV. But at the end of it, we did get to that point where it was, why did Quebec City get wrapped up so quickly and Ottawa's still a shit show?
Same question happened in Toronto, right? And I agree with you. I think CNN kind of broke the system when they turned the 24-hour news thing on. So it didn't matter about details or facts. It was just get stuff on the air. And I'm not blaming CNN. I'm not that side saying, CNN's all fake news, but it's lazy news. It's cheap and effective news, and it's eye-catching news. So I think you're right. And to Dean's point about the WE scandal, it's not exciting. There is nobody screaming and yelling and drinking out of a gas can that's a white collar donator.
Yeah, so Caryma, this is your fault.
Yeah, so there's nobody there doing that. Nobody's watching, and this is what we've created with these news cycles that we do now. We don't watch for details. We watch for shock and awe. Yeah, and that's what we've been
click stuff, right? Like we're looking for out of context stuff to make people click, and but I go back to that, and Caryma, like, you know, you do, and I said this to you the other day, and I really mean this. I think you've changed the way journalists are covering things, specifically in the time that we're in. And you started just like taking your camera with you, recording things, and then posting it, and having comments and conversations as a conversation starter. In the last 2 years, I've seen like these CP24 reporters go like from here with the hi, nice to see you. Look at me all uncomfortable in my parka and this sweet hair. And now they're doing exactly what you're doing, and with better results. Only a few of them, but the majority of people that you see in the wasteland as you kind of travel through Ottawa that are covering this, how is it that you can go into those spaces and you can get the quality footage you get, and you don't, and maybe you do get chased around? I haven't seen it. I know you have by other people. We'll get to that later. But like, all I saw were people posting, oh, look at me, I'm getting harassed again this weekend by people in the crowd. And there's Caryma just like literally talking to a tow truck guy or the guy that was supposed to take down that structure. He's like, how's it going out here? He's like, oh, not bad. Yeah, I was just doing this thing. But like, what are you seeing in terms of like how you're delivering it being so different than how mainstream media is actually being received? Because you get received very well, according to the things that I've seen.
I think there's a couple of things. The first is that I'm not going in with a bulky camera and microphone, so it's evident that I'm media, right? It's a cell phone, and it's me and my cameraman sometimes, and that's it. So I think that there's an inherent distrust of media institutions, and I sort of skate by that because I am not that. You know, the other thing is I try to approach people with like a really respectful and inquisitive energy. So it's not coming from a place of gotcha journalism, or I'm not trying to ambush anybody or attack anybody. I'm just genuinely curious about why they're there, what they're doing, what's going on. And I think that people respond to that by opening up. So I mean, it's funny that you say this, because I get accused of, you know, well, she's cozying up to these people, and I don't think that that's the case at all.
And they haven't watched your stuff.
No, I'm not making an effort to, like, I try to be a fly on the wall, and a fly that sometimes buzzes around and asks a question. And if someone doesn't want to talk to me, they don't have to, right? So I mean, obviously, I only put the stuff where there's something of value, I think, that comes out of it. There are rallies where I am recognized as who I am, and you know, it's more difficult to have conversations as a result because there's suspicion or, you know, dislike. So I have been chased out of rallies before. But even that, you know, there's, even then, there's just this base level of mutual, maybe not respect, but it's this irony of like wanting coverage, but then not wanting mainstream coverage, but then being mad that media is not there, so they'll talk to anyone with a camera. So I think maybe I capitalize on that to some extent.
Caryma has a personality that disarms people too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, I also, and this is something that I'll say because I've noticed this. I'm always shocked at your level of honesty in these interviews. If you don't agree with them, you'll tell them. And the funny thing is you do it in such a way where they don't get mad at you. I don't know if you guys have had conversations with people on these topics, but as soon as you disagree, you can see the blood boil. Right, you can see their energy level just change immediately. Caryma doesn't get that that level of, well, maybe the stuff I've seen you're not getting that. I mean, we get it all the time, right?
I'm also trained as a lawyer, right? So there are some transferable skills from the past 5 years of dealing with unreasonable people. Right.
But isn't that professionalism? Isn't that the ability to pick out somebody who you think is going to have a nuanced approach to you and engaging with you in a reciprocal way?
Honestly, it's a crapshoot at these rallies, and like you really can't judge a book by its cover. And I've been sort of surprised, even where I'm still not able to discern exactly what it is that people are here for, and what they are expecting to get out of this. I think I have gotten to some of what drives people, and it's the one thing I can say with certainty is that there is no single blanket answer, and people are here for different reasons.
I think Caryma hit it on the head too, with the bulky cameras and the news jackets and making it very identifiable, because the videos you see that Dean was talking about them complaining about, oh, I'm being harassed. It's when they're with their crews, but they're also shooting from their cell phone when they're away from that, like Caryma, and I swear they're taking a page out of your book.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not getting harassed, and they're being able to pan like a shot, and people are smiling and waving at them, and oh, freedom, like they're not. It's not that vitriol that you're seeing when the big cameras are there. So I think they're learning from Caryma, to tell you the truth.
Oh yeah,
and
she's changing the game.
She's kind of changed the way the landscape and the operation works.
She has.
Operating. Yeah.
But she has, because her intentions are good. And that's what I'm trying to get to, is that, the intentionality of the way that this has been represented, not just in mainstream media, but online, that has really caused all of the issues. I mean, they can organize online, right? Like, how does this go from, in the world of extremism and radicalization, Jesse, how do these guys come from, as Caryma pointed, all walks of life, and they all get kettled into this same bowl where they get activated? And how does that, why is not mainstream? Why is social media to blame? Because by and large, I mean, if it's not around and we're not here, I mean, this is a totally different game.
No, I mean, we've always had radicalization. We've always had people who've bound together based on common belief. And the thing is that any kind of vitriol or hate didn't need social media to make it happen. It's interesting. Liz Plank, who's an author from Montreal, she wrote a book called For the Love of Men. And in part of her work, she actually interviewed all of these white women who voted for Trump in 2016. And she asked the question, she said, why did you vote for Trump despite what you know as a woman, despite what you know as a religious person of religious beliefs? And they said, I'm out looking out for my son. I'm a white woman who has a white son who might lose his job. We have immigrants coming in, all the rhetoric, everything else. And they said, I voted based on trying to defend my legacy. And the thing is that when you consider it that way, we've always had individuals in Canada who might expunge some form of racist rhetoric. They might sit there and say the things that their dad said. I would say that majority of men that not only that I interact with in my professional life, but in my personal life, have evolved to a point where I don't hear the guys making the stupid racist comment. And if they do, it's part of a group of individuals who've come together and we're making the joke at each other's expense. The thing of it is that when I think about the stupidity of toxic masculinity, this is very evident in everything we're seeing across the board. We are seeing families, we are seeing, some women holding up billboards and things like that, but we are seeing a lot of men positioning themselves with privilege. And I've never seen a protest in Canada get organized so quickly, where you're able to bring in saunas and build shacks and bring in fuel, and have rental vehicles like that. Like we commented on the U-Haul vehicle, that's a rented vehicle that all of a sudden, you've lost all your insurance on it. No protest group I've ever seen in BC has ever moved that that much disregard for personal consequence. So it is interesting to see the privilege in action here.
White privilege, and we've called it a white supremacist thing, and I've really kind of wrapped my head around cognitive bias over the past little while, because there are a lot of people in that group that don't believe that they're exercising their white privilege. They were like all of them, to the point where, and Caryma, you saw the same appropriation of people of color for pictures so they could prove that this wasn't about white privilege. But name me another group that does that isn't just full of white people exercising that privilege from outside the province. Name me one group that doesn't get kettled. other than this group? Like, that, name me one. I haven't seen it. I have seen some of the most egregious protests and protesters, and these guys fucking like. Have you guys seen the thread of the two yahoos that tried to light the apartment building on fire? Did you guys see that thread? It was fucking terrifying. That was on day 9, and I continue to say the same thing, and people keep telling me I'm selling out my race online, and I wonder, like, it's fucking wild.
Because we already have people who are saying that is a cloak and dagger. It's left extremists putting it together. Okay, if that's the case, if that's Antifa and everything else, let the police do their job and figure out if somebody's committed fraud or not. Like, that's as simple as that can be. But when it comes down to the idea that you've got people who are living in apartment buildings who are releasing CCTV camera and saying, hey, this is a potential realistic thing where people tie doors, I don't want it to believe it to be true, but it could be. It very much could be. And that's where we have these big events where people who are radicalized take advantage of things. We always talk about the United States and say, what radicalized the shooter? What radicalized? Not a single country in the world has as many school shootings as the United States does. And what do people do? They blame video games. Well, all those other countries play video games too. It's about uncontrolled access to weapons and mental health assessment. That's it. So if we have a person in Canada who's decided to go and try and burn down an apartment building, that's unassessed mental health. And all you need is one incident to really prove that. But we've had mass shootings in Canada that have shown us that our laws around gun control do work, but when it comes down to illegal weapons, it doesn't. And when it comes down to access and assessment of mental health, our services are severely, severely threatened on a daily basis, and it's only worse now. So within that, when you start adding all those pieces together, I want to believe that somebody is radical enough to try and burn down an apartment building, and that's what we saw. But at the same time, I'm at least open enough to understand that that could be a false flag event because somebody wants to make people believe something. I do subscribe to that. So within that, when we have so many people polarized,
Jesse, you can't use everything that's happened at this rally as this attempt to try to make it look like it's Antifa. And that's the conversation I've had. It's getting frustrating because anytime I mention anything about the rally on the air, I get this, that's Antifa. Like, I'm just getting this. No, you know what? Is it? There's how many people you're telling me all these morons aren't doing a lot of this shit? Come on. Like, there was idiots on the Unforgotten, like,
Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, yeah, and they.
And I'm saying that on each side, there's always the extremes, right? I'm just saying we have to be open to it.
But so, they have to own something. They have to own something, some responsibility for what they're doing there, and that doesn't seem to be the case. And it's even worse for the people that aren't there that are supporting them.
Right. Listen, if I'm at one event where somebody's waving a swastika, I'm leaving. And I'm holding the people who for that event accountable to that point, right? That's it's not a line. That's hey, this is not a party I want to be at. But I also make commentary to my neighbor who's got the Confederate flag in his garage because that's where his wife makes it. I remind him the fact that the Confederate flag is not associated to him being a good old boy from the South when he's from northern BC. But for him, that's the equivalent of what it means to be who he is. And so at the end of the day, if I can make a little bit of edge road with him and say, hey, at the end of the day, here's the thing we're talking about. This is why this flag, despite it being in your garage, might be offensive and maybe you shouldn't let your kids see it. This is the next thing. And he says, well, my dad had it, so I kept it. Right? At what point do you break that cycle of having a flag that identifies hate or might be something that offends a group of individuals? So again,
how about now, you tool?
Caryma, you were going to say something earlier.
I was just going to say that I have a video I'm going to put out from this morning where a woman is addressing the crowd from the flatbed stage, and she's holding a jerry can, and she's talking about accountability and how all of these people essentially, anyone who does something bad isn't really with us. That was her messaging.
Okay. They live in altered states of reality across the board. Like, it's across the board. And that's that. And again, I think, I'm not going to say white, but that's first world privilege of just having zero accountability. I can do whatever the fuck I want around here. And because I have that right. And
it's white people are the only people who look at increased civic responsibility as oppression. Like, it is fucking unbelievable to me. That's
Dean, you don't wear your seatbelt, do you? You don't wear that seatbelt. It's a sign of oppression, government control.
Every time I put it on, I go, click.
I
and
know
put it
people
on
that
and I get
still
confident
don't
and I
wear their
drive.
seatbelts.
Yeah, because they want to show the man, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's the thing.
Ju-
They want
Just
to
as
show
a
the man.
note, can we just go back to this concept of what and Caryma was dead on with the idea of you're with us until you do something bad, right? You know, when we think about how Canada came together after the Humboldt Broncos bus crash, right?
Mhm.
There were a lot of individuals who wanted to see change in the trucking industry. They wanted to have assessments done on who could drive a truck when they could. And we obviously came together because we were concerned that this could happen to a hockey team, a group of young men and the team support who obviously, you know, changed the way that we talked about cross-country travel. But the thing of it is that there were families that forgave the trucker, right? And there were groups in there who were angry that they offered forgiveness, that they offered care and understanding for somebody. That right there is kind of where we are. We're at a point where either you're with us until you do something bad and then we ostracize you, or we've lost so much of our humanity that even when we see somebody else, understand that you've lost a child and you can still express forgiveness to another human being. People go, well, what's wrong with you? Well, they have a better understanding of humanity than you do. And they're the one living the grief. They're the one going through it. So the same thing with mandates, right? There is not a single thing that is being asked of me right now with masks and getting a vaccination that is infringing on my ability to move forward in my life. Nothing. But the thing is, if somebody says, hey, I want to be able to go to a restaurant and I don't want to get a vaccine, then I'm sorry, your privilege has been taken away. That's it. That's it.
Just want to quickly say Jesse Miller
That was
fucks
very well
big
put.
time. Yeah, that is like
Yeah.
that is legitimately exactly how most normal people are looking at this. And I say this all the time. There's a certain segment of society that thinks this is happening to them, and then there's another segment of society that thinks this is happening, and we're cracking on with it. We don't need the government to give us a mandate to do the right thing to keep our families healthy. We don't need to be told that we're in a lockdown when we're not, to force the end of lockdowns or restrictions, because we have the ability to critically think our way through problem solving. And the idea is that we're going to get through this and we're going to be better people and invest in ourselves through the process of trying to understand what's happening around us, right? So that we can respond normally to the world. Not just normally, we can respond in a way where we get better as individuals, and therefore we're better for the people around us, and therefore we make society better. These guys are like a fucking human rain delay, though, dude.
That's good. I like that. That's a good analogy to it. And that's true. I mean, if you even look at the commentary here, people are talking about smoking indoors, everything else. The reality of it is that we've always had aspects of the state putting control. That's just the way things are. But in a democratic society, we subscribe to that, right? It actually works better in a fascist society to have your wants and whims met if you're aligning with the person who's in charge. So within that, and actually to Lachlan's point earlier, I mean, the majority of dictatorships and fascist groups did start by taking advantage of democracy. That's just the way that it worked. And so the scariest events in our past 150 years, whether it be world wars or whether it be total tyranny in certain countries, democracy fell apart because there were people who said, I don't need to subscribe to this anymore. And then their children bore the brunt of it.
So democracy does lead us down a path to extremism at times.
Very much so.
Yeah. I want to key in on a word that you used when you were making the comparison between where we're at and the Humboldt Bronco crash and the humanity from the parents that took the time and the energy and God, I don't know how they did it to forgive the truck driver. And this isn't a very good comparison, but if we are comparing the person in our lives that doesn't necessarily agree with what's going on and may be sympathetic to what's happening in Ottawa or might even be there, how do we forgive that? Like, do you have any suggestions? Do you have any thoughts on where we might start? Because that's kind of where I'm at right now. Like, we are all going to have to get to a point where we are having a discussion about lifting the mandate. How are we going to interact with each other after what we've gone through? If you've got a buddy that refused to get vaccinated, where does that conversation start? Because Jason still hasn't been over to my house. right? Like,
I think the hard part there is like, it's like any conflict we have in our lives. It's the family who subscribes to the full out belief that Jesus is king, and you got the one kid who says, no, I'm out, and they don't go to church anymore, and the church kicks them out. Or you've got the family.
I'm that guy.
That's Dean.
Or you've got the far right family who thinks any individual who's a part of the LGBTQ community is not to be fit in, and then all of a sudden you have to go to the family reunion and explain to grandma. So within that, and again, it goes to forgiveness and understanding. I'm not a man of faith in any way, shape, or form, but I have been forgiven in my life, and I've had the opportunity to learn how to forgive. And I think on both sides, once you really understand empathy, it's not an idea that you have different ideas of the world. It's the idea that you can find common ground. And so the most important thing here is not operating in a silo of affirmation, wherever you stand on the coin. And if I look at the chat again, I see people, some people want to get mad at educated individuals. Well, education means what? Is it academic? Is it trades? There are a lot of things in trades I'm capable of doing, but I'd much rather pay somebody who knows 1,000 times better than I to do it effectively and properly, so that at the end of the day, I get where I need to be safely. I'm going to do the exact same thing in academics when it comes to medicine. So within that, the idea that we have individuals who are experts in their fields, sometimes that's the space we need to be giving it to. And I think we have to find that common ground. And if you feel like you're the person who's, going in the ring and you're better than the other individual, bring yourself down a little bit. Hear the other person's viewpoint.
I've done my own research.
Yeah, and then do their research as well. See what they're.
I find that always goes well.
I
find doing a conspiracy theories research for them and then presenting it to them. They're always very open.
I want to know where these conspiracy theories come from. That's the key. Is that I think there is some beauty in conspiracy theories, that they actually do start somewhere.
What's your favorite?
Oh, I love the Pizzagate one. I love the idea that the Washington elites run these series of tunnels where they move children underneath the ground. Like, I love that. But you know what? It's funny. I used to live.
Dean's a customer.
I got called. I was the whole group. In fact, I think I might even have it here, if I'm not mistaken. The whole group. Oh yeah, no, the Convoy. The official Convoy called me a pedophile. Said I was trying to dox cops in Ottawa for posting this video.
But just as a note,
I'm in the group too.
I used to live across the hall. I have no idea. I used to live across the hall from an individual who was wrapped up in the sex cult in
NXIVM.
NXIVM, yeah.
Oh wow!
And we were neighbors for 3 years, and she was one of the primaries who was found guilty. We had no idea. We had no idea whatsoever. We would have wine. Our dogs would play. We'd hang out.
Can I ask you a question? When you found out she was in a sex cult, did you go, ooh, yeah?
No, I looked at my wife and I said, "Why in the world were we never invited?" And that was
Is that why you have the pineapple? That's the pineapple, right?
Is that the swinger pineapple?
Is that the swinger pineapple?
That's the swinger pineapple. Yeah, that's exactly it.
From what I've been told, it's flamingos, pink flamingos.
I heard it was stars above the garage.
I've got 30 on my yard, and it still hasn't done anything.
It's not working.
Talk about conspiracy theories, right? That one's been going around for like 50 years. I remember when I moved to Markham, they're like, hey, if you see anybody that has a star above the garage, they're swingers. Go up and knock on their door and ask for sex. And I'm like,
it's
that can't be
with
true.
Car keys and everything else. I mean,
that's garage halfway up was one I heard.
Yeah, that was
what if your garage door gets stuck?
That's in this town where I am. Apparently, we're like
Albert.
the capital in Ontario.
That's
I didn't
a lie.
even know that.
Every place you go to where you. Yeah, so is Markham. It's the capital of Ontario for swinging too. So just so you know.
Now, I heard it had to be an upside down pineapple, which doesn't work well because this one's just a stash spot. There's a bunch of garbage in there. But
what do you got in there? Huh?
It's dope.
You got dope in there?
Dope.
Yeah, right. No, sure you do.
Yeah. It used to be dope, but now they legalized it, so now it's just in the fridge.
Yeah. Attaboy. Fuck, I love this guy. He's the best, right? Jesse Miller. Ladies and gentlemen,
let's go back to
mediatedreality.com is where you can find him.
I just followed him.
Sorry, go back. You said you wanted to go back.
I was just going to say that's the part with conspiracy, right? After reading all the NXIVM stuff and everything else, I was blown away. But the thing is, I lived across the hall from it and had no idea. So in that there are truths, there are pieces out there. And so for some individuals, I want to believe that there are people out there who are trafficked. I want to believe that there are people who need help. It doesn't mean at the end of the day that, Trudeau is Castro's bastard son. And so within that,
have you seen the pictures?
They look a lot alike.
Listen, I believe that one.
I think we should send Castro 23andMe.
Caryma?
Not to be conspiratorial, but the
Yeah.
best theory I've heard on that is that because Trudeau has brown nipples, there may be some truth to this.
He's got brown nipples? You know, I swear to God, that one, I see
Caryma.
that every day.
Caryma off the
see
top
memes
rope
of
like
that.
Jimmy Superfly Snooker right there with the brown nipple joke. There you go.
Jeez.
That's
a good one. I had no idea that was even part
Yeah.
of the dialogue. Like
It wasn't.
I've seen
Caryma
it
just
before and
made it
after.
up
I've
to
got
see
my
how
ear
far it
to
would
the
go.
ground for all
I've seen the
important-
clone, Dolly the sheep clone replacement.
Yeah. My
brown
favorite
nipples,
one.
that's-
My favorite one was how I got the video of this lady from a Zello chat and she goes off on Jewish people. She's like, they're eating the babies. Listen to this.
Funny, huh? I know what side I'm on, and it just really sucks. Y'all are on the other side, man. I still don't hate you. It still doesn't matter what you say. I still know the ADL is a bunch of shit. I'm tired of kikes running everything. I'm tired of Jewish people eating my children. I'm tired of Jewish people running everything.
So, can I ask why we always come back to give it to our Hebrew and Jewish friends every time a major issue in the world breaks out? Because I'm getting fucking tired of it too. Like
just as a note, as a Jew, I was never offered children at shul to eat. Like they didn't. Nobody was bringing that around.
And no
on the
offense, you
Passover
guys aren't
plates.
great cooks as it is, and I don't think you'd know what to do with it anyway. To tell you the God's honest
The
truth.
framing
We're good
of
at
that,
smoked
though,
meat, dill
I'm tired of my
pickles.
children.
Your brisket's good. I'll give you that.
The brisket's
Brisket's
decent.
good.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to
I
eat
like a little
gefilte
capers
fish.
on me bagel.
Gefilte fish. Caryma, what did you say? You were saying something?
Just the idea that I'm tired of my children being eaten, like it's happened more than once. Like,
I didn't even think of that. You're right. How many kids are missing from her?
But like as because I can't stand it. Like it's one of those things that drives me crazy. And we brought up a point earlier, and it's not just the alt-right that is like rallying around Jewish people and using Jewish people in this. The left does it as well. I'm going to show you a tweet that was put out by John Kay. So Bernie Farber's the head of the Canadian Anti-Hate Network. You're aware of him, right? Bernie put this video, this on Twitter. He said, taken by a friend in Ottawa at the occupation, apparently in plain sight. The title of this flyer that he took a picture of, or allegedly took a picture of, is every single aspect of the COVID agenda is Jewish. And then it goes on to name a bunch of Jewish people in the United States government, business people, and, go on about these terrible Jewish people, which is fucking gross, disgusting. Well, John Kay from Quillette, he's the editor of Quillette, found another exact same replica, which was in Miami. This is from an account called @BecauseMiami. The Miami PD said anti-Semitic COVID conspiracy flyers were distributed overnight in residential neighborhoods. If you receive one, please call Miami Police Department. Here's the number. And John was kind enough to point out that, as he said, Bernie, it's incredible. The picture of your friend in Ottawa at the occupation sent you is the identical to the photo posted on Twitter 2 weeks ago by someone in Miami, right down to the ceramic tile in the background. And on top of it, this is him again posing with some people of color because that looks good. These are the videos. And here's part of his excuse, which I find fucking fascinating. He said, respectfully, anti-Semitic and racist flyers are produced and too easily accessible online to be copied and distributed. This particular flyer is not new to me, but in the post, he actually said it was taken by a friend in Ottawa at the occupation, apparently in plain sight, where he kind of alludes to the fact it was new to him. And this is the president, the chair of the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, who has since tried to back off from this whole thing. I think I've got the video. Oh, no, that's Randy Hillier, where he said this is his new explanation. Okay, for the record, a friend from Ottawa told me they saw an anti-Semitic flyer and sent it to me. I posted it, and the photo itself was old and originally from Miami. However, they said they saw the same thing. Since I am not in Ottawa, I cannot attest to it. And I found this really fucking gross. Like, That is a government-run organization. They got paid by the government of Canada $250,000 to exist this year. And the president, the chair, is doing to these white supremacists what they have been doing to him, which is presenting disinformation to an entire community to try and wrap this up like it's something it's not, even though we know it is. Like, I couldn't get over that. I would love your thoughts on not just the right, but the left, like the alt left using this to radicalize people for them as well.
Yeah, so I'm not going to get into left or right on the idea of it, but misinformation goes to affirmation bias. And so let's say Bernie's sitting there, his friend sees this thing online, texts it to him and says, look what's being handed out in Ottawa, because they saw it online or they saw it. Like that's right away not doing your homework and figuring out the source of the image, right? That's just it. Like, you should be asking that question no matter what your role is in an organization. And if it's PR or if it's social media comms, like that's social media 101 at this point in time, right? You don't want to be propagating BS, and you at the same time don't want to be burning yourself. So I could see a scenario like that could occur, and somebody says, well, this was just sent to me. But that said, I did see the live footage from Ottawa where a person was walking around with a billboard on their body with all those points and the big yellow sign. And so that doesn't mean it wasn't occurring. It just means that specific image. So whether you're left or right, if it affirms your bias, if it echoes in your chamber, if it is resonating in your silo, you're going to sit there and jump on it as quick as you can because you want to get out there and say, look at how bad this is, that what's happening. And that's part of the rhetoric. We did that with the barbecue guy in Ontario, with the shutdown of the restaurant. We did that with Don Cherry. We do that with everything when it comes to things we don't like on one side, and we do it on the opposite side as well. So I can't sit there and say, how does this happen? It happens because people are too eager to share information without figuring whether or not it's misinformation. It's as simple as
sloppy. Yeah. I mean, you talked a lot about where we were at with mainstream media and how we might be where we're at with the 24-hour news channels. I think we can also blame social media for that. There's this energy.
Got to get it first.
We got to get it out there. I mean, there's been that for years. Or I need this to prove my point, right? Like I even get caught up into it as well, right?
And there's a bit of a dirty play to it. I get it because it is the industry, but when we see things like when we see kids locked in a school because there's a potential shooter, and we see the journalists who are piping up in the kids' Instagram feed or Twitter feed saying, "Hey, I saw that you're in the building. Can you get on air for an interview?" Like there's a dirty approach to getting the story there that is well beyond safety in any way, shape, or form. And I think we should be exploring some aspects of control in that space and some form of potential legislation that actually gets to the point of how do you communicate to people in crisis events. But that said, I mean, we are at a point now where Canada is diving into the question of, do we regulate social media more? Do we introduce conversations? I mean, the only real good thing I've seen this past week about regulating anything is hate symbols. And just an addition to hate speech in Canada, in the sense that you can't be walking around waving a swastika or a Confederate flag in certain spaces. I mean, I'm okay with that one.
Jugmeat brought that up this week, I believe.
Yeah.
Should we? I think it was go ahead.
Should we? I mean, I was dead set against C10, which was a bill set to police the CRTC, and only because the CRTC is fucking criminal. But anyway, that's another story. But like, I'm sorry, am I
got a beef.
Chances
to work on the radio again? Oops.
Canada is outdated in 21st century tech when it comes to our laws. I think majority of people will say that. I mean, Canada has some really interesting laws. Like we have obscenity law. We had people who used to watch videos and read books and listen to music for anything that would meet the criteria for obscenity.
Yeah, family values, justice leagues, and things.
Just
like that.
Weird stuff that you're like,
We're
so
still
it's
regulating
on the person, but not in.
on terrestrial radio when you can stream anything at any given time. You have 1,000 sources on your phone, but God forbid Cruise FM play anything less than 40% fucking CanCon.
Don't miss that Anne Murray.
Oh my God, Street Heart up your ass. Why do I hate Street Heart so much? Now, come hang out with me for a fucking week.
I'm listening to a bunch of guys who had to play a lot of Chilliwack back in the day. I love it.
Oh yeah, I hate
I'm
that
still
band
playing
too.
Chilliwack.
Yeah, it's because he
I'm
works at a
okay with
classic rock
July.
station in Edmonton. But should we be? And Caryma, I want to hear from you as well. You do this all the time. You've been the victim of the folks at the Canadian Anti-Hate Network doing that kind of jackassery to you, the misrepresentation. You've seen the hate. You've seen, the extreme of the extremes covering this stuff. But you're also free to post whatever you want. And I kind of get caught between that. And I've had to ask myself over the past week and a half, do we need to police the internet a little bit more? Should we be doing that?
I think that, policing generally is something that I am averse to. So, can we look beyond that construct of punishment or restrictions and think of other ways to achieve the same result? Because I think
Education.
right?
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it. What we are looking for is for, the internet to not be leading people into harmful spaces or activities where especially it's for either the entertainment or the profit of someone with nefarious motives, right? So that I think we can agree is a bad thing, but what if we had more media literacy? What if what if we had some sort of system to fact check, to verify, and we had kind of what is fact, right? What is objective? Sure, those are all conversations we need to have. I don't know that policing or censorship is the way to do it. And there's a distinction, I think, between censoring hate speech or something that is an incitement to violence, and just a broader sort of censorship. But that's where I land on this. I don't think that, I think the way to counter bad speech is with better speech, and I have yet to change my views on that.
Yeah.
Can I just throw a wrench
Great
into
point.
the education comment there, Caryma?
Mhm.
I've always been baffled by how people get conned, right? So if my phone rings and somebody says to me, by the way, we have a warrant out for your arrest unless you meet me at the ATM and you give me $500, I go, oh, fuck off, right? But then I watched somebody in front of me on my show get that call and was putting on his boots to go to the ATM. And he's a 45-year-old man. I think we're past the point of education with some people. And I don't know how much education. I was always shocked by those fake calls until I watched somebody get one and run. It was running off to give this guy cash.
How do you teach media
answer.
literacy to people that drink their own urine instead of getting vaccinated? There's my question.
I think Caryma, I think what she's thinking is the long play. I think she's thinking about starting this when kids are younger in school and teaching them the dangers of the internet. And everybody now is just a lost fucking cause. Don't get me wrong.
I thought you were talking about trying to save the guy that was drinking
anybody
gas.
over 18.
There is a lost generation in that. Though, I mean, look, just in 2019, 2020, we had more adults in Canada who were being investigated for aspects of harassment and criminal behavior online than we did young people. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, it becomes harder to actually measure those stats because we didn't have kids in schools who were coming in and disclosing aspects of bullying the same way we were kind of bringing a lot of resources to it. But when it comes to media literacies and digital citizenship, we actually have a lot of young people who are more aware of the scam potentials and things like that. But unfortunately, a lot of the issues that we position with internet safety become the fear-based. It's the idea of how much time online, predation, and when it comes down to it, our moral virtues around nudity and explicit content. But the thing is that when we introduced in 2015 the Protecting Canadians from Online Crime Act, I mean, everybody saw that as the sexting law that was going to protect young people. Not a single thing in our child pornography laws changed. That law actually gave an individual who is violated as an adult the ability to go to police and say, hey, somebody's distributing my images without consent. Can we do something about it? And then there was a punitive ability to go forward. And so that's why now we're seeing the RCMP moving towards safer sexting education as opposed to abstinence, don't take pictures of yourself. That's why we see more and more advocacy groups encouraging individuals to take healthier photos where you can't see the face or you can't see identifiers in certain ways. And then you take away the values of shame, you take away the leverage. And to that point of some of those scams, we've had individuals across Canada who get that phone call and they say, hey, we've got pictures of you off your hard drive, things like that. We're going to tell your spouse, we're going to do everything. And they run to the bank machine because they're terrified that the things that they were doing online, despite it just being looking at some pornographic website, is going to tear apart their professional and their personal life. And that right there is the way that individuals are leveraged in that space. And the less that we give that power to individuals to use, the better things are.
Mm-hmm.
I can never figure out Bitcoin, so I always tell them you're on your own.
You're good.
Send that video of me whacking it to my mom. I have no idea how to get to my Bitcoin.
I got news, by the way. The court injunction, Caryma, did you just see this tweet?
I did.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about it? Because you're a lawyer and you'll be able to cover it better than me.
So, I mean, I haven't read the decision, obviously. I don't even know that it's been issued. But it sounds like there is going to be an injunction in place to prevent honking. So we will see what effect that has. Police already had, a tool in their toolbox to stop this. But now that there is an injunction in place, it basically raises the stakes, and it means that there could be criminal charges for someone who violates that.
Couldn't there be property forfeiture as well? I've heard that floated as well, that where they would seize a vehicle because of that.
Yep, that's a potential consequence as well. And if in fact these are truckers who rely on their trucks for their income, then one would think that would be a motivator. And if it has no effect, then I think we're going to have more questions about who these people actually are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does the funding for media literacies now come from proceeds of crime for seized trucks? Is this the full circle?
Maybe. And you know what? Here's the thing, because Caryma and I were pissed. We both had lawsuits planned. They were in the works because they called me a pedophile last week. And I'm like, well, I'll just sue them for $10 million. And then all of a sudden, it's gone. Like the GoFundMe's gone because GoFundMe freaked out and they're in deep shit now. And now they've raised another $5 million in that Christian crowdfunding thing. Go Send Some or Yay Jesus or whatever they call it.
Give Send Go.
That's the one. Yay Jesus, Give Send Go. So they raised another $5 million. So Caryma, I just wanted to point out, I've earmarked some of that for us too.
Excellent. Good to hear.
Ring those phones.
I'm hoping that Caryma is in line with this, but we do need 21st century laws that forbid international interference in our campaigns in any way like that. So that's where the GoFundMe and Give Send Go. So Australia has some very good laws around that. And
apparently,
why don't we?
From the guy that I talked to today, when I said that that was part of the reason why GoFundMe froze that account, and they were sending money back. Accused me of being just basically toying the CBC line, and I'm like, what? It's right there in the GoFundMe.
FBI, CSIS involved, and you're like, you're just repeating CBC, man.
Jesus.
I know some people are going to be shocked to hear this, but sometimes the CBC does report facts. Sometimes.
Well, they do, generally speaking. I mean, specifically around this kind of stuff, right? But it was all like, that's what we know, is that the FBI and CSIS had to come in and go, hey, GoFundMe, you're in deep shit because this is dark money coming from other countries, Russia, the United States, which goes like, I know we've got dark money rules, but foreign interference rules, you bring up a great point. Why don't we have any? Caryma, do you know? You're a lawyer. I don't know. I mean, I just assumed we would have. Like, this
no
is
one
exposed
pays
to a bunch
attention
of
to Canada.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
I think we're reactive in the way that we do legislation, right? If there isn't really political will, and there's no easy win for something, we don't unfortunately have a lot of leaders who are governing with sort of a proactive view towards serving the public interest. It's what's going to benefit me in the short term, and it's very short term thinking, and technology is far outpacing what the legislature does, and even what the courts are able to understand or comprehend. I will say in Ontario, we are one of the few common law jurisdictions last year to have created a tort of internet harassment. So there is, there are judges who are mindful that there are new and very disturbing ways that people are using the internet and are trying to kind of create legal tools to prevent that from happening. But that's a drop in the bucket compared to the variety of issues that we're facing. And the slower we are to react, the more likely problems are to be entrenched.
And the funny thing about the GoFundMe now is, if we would have looked at enacting laws to protect people that were either recipients of a GoFundMe fundraiser or donators, if we were to enact those laws 6 months ago, nobody would have fuck whatever, GoFundMe, I'm not reading about that, I don't care. But now that GoFundMe messed with these guys, and when the government does try to enact these laws, the pushback is going to be insane from the same group going, they're just trying to censor us, they don't want anybody raising them. This would have been a non-issue 6 months ago.
Honestly
to pass through
this
legislation.
Group honestly thinks, Ryan, that Justin Trudeau is going to take that money and give it to his buddies. Like, that's what I heard this morning. I swear to God, I'm like, no, they're sending it back. It's right on the GoFundMe.
Jordan
Nope,
Peterson.
That's a lie.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson last night was waxing on Twitter about how GoFundMe stole your money, and I'm like, you're an idiot, you dipshit. They gave the money back.
Jordan also retweeted Caryma yesterday. She was quite proud of that, too.
Oh, wow.
Nice,
Did
Wow.
he?
Proud is a word, perhaps not the word that I would use to describe this. It's been a mess. I have a mess of people who
Has he lost his mind?
Yeah.
Jordan slipped a little?
He's lost his tenure. We know that. So.
Yeah.
Is it the drug use that may have?
I think
it might have been the
fact,
all-meat diet. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the fact that he spent a couple months in a medically induced coma in Russia, he's a virulent asshole, like he's a Western civilization freak. Those guys I fucking can't stand. The guys who go, it's time to stand up for Western civilization. I watched a speech with him, or it was an interview where he was talking about if we exchange roles where we let women go to work and the men stay home, it'll be the end of Western civilization. And I'm like, oh, that's why everybody fucking hates the guy. Because he's a racist,
and a misogynist.
And a misogynist.
And a misogynist. He's and he cloaks it in high-minded, high society thing. I don't know if you watched the Rogan stuff where he was going on about the Bible being the most truest of truest of
He's
true.
slipped over there, eh?
I saw a perfect description of him was in a reply to that tweet about the GoFundMe thing was, Jordan Peterson is just a fucking idiot with a thesaurus. And I said, you know what? You're right. He really is. He's just
I don't know about that.
He's a fucking asshole with big words. That's all he is.
But he definitely has an approach. Whether I think he's slipped. I think something's going on.
I think he was always. I don't know enough about the guy to know that, like, where the genesis of his descent into ridiculousness started.
His descent was basically saying, "You can't tell me what to say," and that's what made him relevant. Yeah. I mean, that was the key piece of assessing use of pronouns as an educator. I mean, I have students. I just want to know what they want to be called. Like I have students whose names I could never pronounce because I don't speak the language of their mother tongue. But when they give me a name, I'm going to try my absolute best to figure out what to call them. I mean, that's just being a kind of considerate human being who's in a position of education. We see educators, though, who do that all the time. They say, I can't say your name, so I'll make it up. I mean, the majority of people of color in Canada who have immigrated somewhere, from somewhere, that they've experienced that. And that's unfortunate that, we still hear that in Canada, where it's like, well, your name doesn't sound right, so I'll call you something different. But that's where Peterson basically argued, and that's where he became relevant in our fringe society, in the sense that people are saying, you can't tell me what to do. That's also what we're dealing with here. People who feel you can't be told what to do.
Isn't that all of this movement? It's the don't tell me what to do movement.
I've got a driver's license. It gives me the privilege to drive. It doesn't give me the right to drive. right? That's the difference here, right? If I abuse that privilege, it's taken away from me, right? If I get to a red light and I'm texting and driving for the 6th time I get caught and they give me a ticket, they give me a ticket. But if I drive 30 kilometers over the speed limit, they impound my car. So what is it about these ideas of rights and freedoms that are so convoluted to the point of operating in a civil society? None of these truckers would allow anybody to show up at work with a basic license. You know, the inability to operate air brakes. They'd say, get this person off our crew. They're a danger to us. So why is it that individuals who pride themselves in using personal protection most of the time when it comes to their work, when they pride themselves on knowing how to do the job properly, and anybody who's a greenhorn shouldn't be on the rig, what is it about this idea of listening to medical professionals and saying, wear a mask, get a shot, you're going to be fine, that makes them wrong?
You can't tell me what to do.
Great point. Well, that's a great point. It's the freedom
boiled
of
it right down.
Freedom exactly did. The freedom of obligation, right? It's this freedom from the responsibility that we all have to live in this country, that we have to each other, and by and large that we have to ourselves. There's a phrase that in Stoic philosophy, it's what's bad for the hive is bad for the bee. And I don't think these people understand that at all. I don't think that they know that trying to hurt Canada just fucking destroys them. Trying to hurt their neighbor with a dissenting opinion destroys them. And I think a lot of people that are ultra-maskers are the same way. You don't realize what you're doing to the whole, how it affects you, right? Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating to watch.
And I think we're too privileged in the sense that if we actually had to be paying for our healthcare, a lot of us would be not having this conversation, right?
Well, I don't know. We see that down in the States, and it's not the case there.
The largest group in the States have insurance who are loud about this. I mean, that's the consistent thing. I think the majority of them have good insurance and they don't care, but that's just the way it's structured. But I think that if Canadians had to pay for more than parking in their healthcare at this point, we would see a lot of these individuals who are saying, yeah, if I get sick, I end up in hospital, big deal. When you have to shell out $1,200 to see a doctor for 6 minutes, you're going to be feeling a little bit different.
Yeah.
You want to get the phones going on a radio station, bring up paying parking at the hospital.
Yeah. People get a little angry.
People get so mad. Yeah,
I like the tactic that the insurance companies in the States were using in denying copay waivers for people that were unvaccinated, willingly unvaccinated, not by medical exemption, but willingly unvaccinated. They were denying waiving any copays, and they were getting stuck with the bills themselves. And once they announced that, wow, their insured got vaccinated. It was odd.
That's the way it goes.
But didn't Quebec see the exact same thing the day after they even proposed the idea of?
And the vaccinations went through the fucking roof when they said, "Hey, by the way, you're going to need it to buy booze and pot."
And we didn't even touch on this because this trucker thing kind of bowled over everything we've been doing around here. We didn't even talk about Legault pulling that, just saying, "Yeah, you know what? Forget about it. It's fine."
Right.
Because he watched it. You were right. He watched it crest. It hit that point. He realized, okay, it's not going to go any higher. It's okay, guys. No problem.
Gotcha.
At least he tested it. He tested it.
It was brilliant.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, that's where I'm okay with politicians lying to us.
Jesse Miller at Mediated Reality is where you can find him on Twitter. He is a media literacy expert, and he's also got his master's in media literacy and his master's in education. Working
Never
at a
listen
UVic.
to my show.
Taking a bit of a break. One of Canada's great educators. And you know what? What I love the fact is that you didn't look at this through a lens of here's what I read in the textbook. You looked at it through a lens of here's what I know. And let's combine that with being human beings to each other. Let's talk about forgiveness. Let's talk about trying to move forward. Let's talk about, how we affect change and not trying to use things like we're in a use this society. I mean, Locke said it earlier. He admitted to it. I admit to it too, where we're like, oh, I'm going to take this piece and just fucking sewer that guy or this group with it. And I feel like in large part, over the past 8-9 days, I almost feel like it's been our jobs to some extent, like from a defense perspective, like, holy shit, we need to just tell people the truth about what's happening here on the network, which is why Caryma is so valuable, because she's like one of the only people legitimately out there just capturing what is happening and trying to tell people, listen, this isn't what you think it is. This is not what you are being told it is. Like I almost looked at the gotcha shit that we did online this week, as we need to, and this is going to sound terrible, we got to paint this group as with the brush that they're giving us. Like, they are what they are. That white privilege, the white supremacy, the idea that you are more important than us. You know what I mean? And I it's so effective, but part of me now feels a little guilty after talking to you a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, we all go for the low hanging fruit sometimes. It is true, right? And the hard part there becomes there are so many issues that should bring us together as Canadians that really, I mean, we have a very large landmass, a lot of personalities, a lot of cultures, and the thing of it is that in the best parts of Canada, we find common ground, right? And we don't assume. I mean, I've had the privilege of being in the Arctic Circle where I've eaten what was given to me because that was it. Right. And if I walked in with the idea of, well, where's the food that I would eat? I mean, I would starve. And so to be able to go into communities and to have people take care of you, that is what I think makes Canada sometimes the thing that makes us proud to put a flag on our backpack for all that rhetoric of, people will like you when they see a certain way. We're unfortunately seeing parts of Canada right now that are shining in this space that are giving power to people who are going to amplify it for the wrong reasons. And we saw that with Ted Cruz. We saw that with the GOP kind of aligning with the truckers in Canada. And that right there is the thing that would take away a lot of what makes us Canadian, not necessarily a flag waving Canadian, but Canadian. So.
Totally agree. Appreciate you being here, Jesse. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jesse.
Mediatedreality.com is where you can find him. You were going to say something there, bud?
I was just saying, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. It's a wonderful opportunity
awesome,
to have some fun.
Yeah, dude. You probably get stuck with the serious shit all day. We just wanted to have some fun, get some real information about how we can become better people. So we really appreciate
have
you
a
being
laugh
here.
at
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
I don't like to
Thanks,
be told
brother.
what to do, but this was good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Locke, you like this.
Take care, dude. Take care. That's Jesse Miller.
Go follow
from
him on
Mediated
Twitter.
Reality.
Yeah. His Twitter's
Mediated reality. He was that was fucking amazing.
Yeah, he was good.
That was really good.
Yeah, he was like a much better person than all of us, except for
Yeah.
Caryma.
Yeah,
So
him
I
and
got
Caryma
that.
should do this show, actually.
Yeah.
We should all fuck off and watch the show and learn from it. That would be an idea.
If there's one thing I learned, I am a total dick.
So
Thanks
Caryma,
for making us feel like assholes, Jesse. Come back anytime.
This shit's coming to an end in Ottawa. Is that what you're seeing? Like we got the injunction about an hour ago.
Yeah, we have the injunction. It remains to be seen whether they will abide by it. And it remains to be seen how police will or will not enforce it. So I'm definitely going to be out tonight, just keeping an eye or an ear on things.
Less noisy?
Are the crowds going down? Are the numbers going down?
Yeah.
During the weekdays, yes, right? So
Okay.
during the weekdays,
Weekends, it's a party.
yeah, weekends, it really does become a party. And that's what's funny about this. Like, it's people are here for different reasons and kind of all getting into the same swimming pool that has been pissed in. So
Yeah, I don't want to get anywhere near that pool.
By the way, just a warning, if you're ever hot tubbing with me,
You're peeing in it?
I peed in it.
You're one of those guys, eh?
I can't help it.
I think
pee
you
in
can.
every
but-
hot tub I'm in.
Okay.
It's so
There's a
warm.
sauna here, Lachlan, and if that interests you as well.
I don't pee in saunas. Hot tubs, though,
Okay.
fair game.
You'll go for it?
I don't care if I'm in sandals or a Best Western.
Was that supposed to be a commercial?
Christ. I don't care if I get sandals or the Best Western. Fucking 20 minutes ago, you just sewered one of the guys you work with for jerking off online and going to the bed machine. Now you're shitting on sandals in the Best Western. I don't know why I found that so fucking funny. Oh my God.
We're all tired.
Do you have is there a different vibe in the city? Like, are people,
You know what?
know.
It's funny. Yesterday I got some
Stop
people.
it, Ryan.
I got some people arguing with cops about cement blocks and calling the police Nazis. And it was decidedly more subdued and somber. But right after I filmed this video about how every drop of fuel counts, like this truck just starts revving the hell out of its engine. So I don't know. No one seems to care. I don't know.
Yeah, but like if someone from Ottawa comes up to you and they're like, Caryma, I follow you on Twitter and Instagram and you're wonderful and you're the only person telling the truth. When's this over? Like, do you know?
So if police cannot remove people by, let's say, Thursday, if there are still trucks here on Thursday, then my sort of assumption is that people will come for the weekend again.
Yeah.
So it really, like, the weekends are, the weekends are, and
like
the
sandals.
weekend, you know, it's sure you book your hotel Friday at 3, but like, what time are you showing up? Like, I think if people are still here on Thursday, then the signal goes out. This is where we're going on the weekend. So that's kind of that's what I would use to sort of measure it.
Didn't they unload that Confederation or what was that park that was?
They moved the little community kitchen. To my understanding, like there were horses involved at one point. Like it went on the highway. The guy was actually
crazy.
Like, you know, he was actually
the Oregon Trail.
And he was very excited when I told him that it made the news because he was not aware that his structure was in the news. So he was stoked about that. And you know, it's so that's now at Coventry Road. And my experience,
but that's gone, isn't it? Isn't Coventry Road gone?
No. Well, I don't know. So the press release says that like these arrests happened, you know, around 9 p.m. That's when I was there. So I must have missed it. I must have been looking the wrong way. I don't know. But when I left, like that, the structure was still in place and people were still there. Trucks were still there. So I might have to make my way back out there to see if it's gone or just.
Yeah, I saw that Coventry Park was like, it had a whole fence around it. Everybody's gone. The video from last night when they started to kick people out though was
Confederation Park is different than Coventry Road.
I'm talking about Coventry Road, the baseball diamond where they had the big camp, right? The big camping thing. And so they went there to clean it out last night. And the start of the cleanup.
I did see a video of that. I wasn't sure which one it was, but I did see that clean out video.
Yeah, it's like the start of the cleanup was funny because if it's only like 16 seconds, but if you wait till 15 seconds, you'll see all the sad people go. Like, it is really fucking hilarious. If you're as mean as me, of course.
Sorry, I missed the front of that. Did that say reception by any chance?
Handwritten.
Yes.
Reception.
Also on the porta potties, there's a bulletin board with like, if you need these services, and then like you can call for different services.
Wow.
So there's like some level of coordination.
What
I just want to like
services are they requiring in the shitter?
What's is there any
what was the point? Hang on, Caryma wanted to finish something first.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say the other thing that's been going on with me is I think ever since Jordan Peterson retweeted me, there's all of these massive right-wing accounts that are juxtaposing my tweet about the truckers losing their GoFundMe and then my own tweet about losing my GoFundMe. So I just want to say to everyone, fuck off.
That's not very nice, guys. You leave Caryma alone.
Whatever. Like, karma, you know, it's not karma because I didn't do anything wrong.
That's kind of it. Yeah.
Hey, and you got some Halifax weed.
I was going to say, how did that go?
Complain. You know what? I'm gonna.
It was good.
Consider the East Coast is what I'm.
I just consider the East Coast to grow. Go ahead.
I had one quick question about the move. What was the tactical idea behind moving them from where they are to a lower socioeconomical and more racialized community? What was the point of that, do you think?
That's a very good question. I think part of it was getting them out of Confederation Park because it was embarrassing. And so there's more eyes on Confederation Park. It's right by Parliament, easier to see, all of that. And the other location is a bit more out of the way. You know, you're right that the demographic, I think, is a little bit different. I don't know. I'm not so familiar with that area, so I don't know. But it is interesting that while I was there yesterday, I did not hear any honking. So they don't honk amongst themselves.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
a T-shirt.
It is.
Don't honk amongst yourselves. And the other thing that I found interesting about yesterday, too, is they had a honking ban from 9 a.m. till 1 p.m. because it was, and I'm not shitting you, the Lord's Day.
Yep.
But they weren't honoring that
Holy
because while there was the Christian rock music happening on stage, which is great, there was also honking, which was better. So
well, and the organizers that asked for people to observe the no honking on Jesus Christ's special day, special birthday, happy birthday, baby Jesus, little beautiful baby Jesus.
Was he born every Sunday?
There were people that did not observe.
I don't know. I never read that book.
Well, there were people that were not observant, and the organizers, the Christian organizers, because this is largely, I mean, call it what
can't tell them what to do. So
yeah, I know, because their Jesus tells them what to do, and that's more important to them. But is that? Listen, I come back to this all the time. Do I like kicking the shit out of born again Christians? Yeah, all the time. But like, because I used to be one, and I know you're full of shit. And it's my thing. That's why I get angry sometimes. It's like literally the only thing that keeps me going is like, how can I sewer this cult? But do you have like a real, like, do you see it more and more? I know you've been to the rallies. There's a lot of Jesus in this group, isn't there? There's a lot of like, Jesus is the reason for the season. We listen to him, not the government. Is that an overriding feeling you get still?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I have on maybe one or two occasions seen Sikh people who are giving out samosas, but any other kind of religious intervention that I've observed, whether it's the guy carrying the giant cross talking about trust the Lord, not Doug Ford, or Pastor Hildebrandt giving his speeches, or the Christian rock music, or the truck with Jesus's name on it. Like, it's a very heavy Christian. Like yesterday, there was a prayer for the truckers.
Yeah.
A very long prayer.
Yeah. Those Zello chats, that's all it is prayers and hymns and sing-alongs and praise this and praise
so
that.
Culty. It's so
such
culty.
A cult. Oh my
dude,
God.
And it's not that believing in a certain religion in itself is the reason why they're in a cult.
No.
It's the actions of the people that believe in an invisible God that somehow built the world in 7 days. That's where they lose me. They lose me there.
I wanted to talk to Jesse. I forgot to bring it up, but when we were talking about like the way social media has evolved, and we've talked about this in the past. Religion is on the decline in the last 20 years, while online extremism is on the rise, and there's a reason for that. It's because they don't have a priest looking over them, making sure that they're following all the rules to a T. They're just in their own echo chamber, and that's the religion now. But they still incorporate Christ when it's convenient. Christ for convenience. That's another good. I'm going to start that one.
Another great shirt.
Christ for convenience,
so
and that's what it is.
Shirts.
And so they've abandoned the buildings and they've moved them online and on Zello chats now. I've never knew this was.
I've
a
never
thing
heard of a Zello chat.
I was last night.
They're
I didn't
awesome.
get to sleep till 1 o'clock in the morning because I was so it just.
They're awesome. If you really want to like get to know what's in the brains of these wackos. Go on as one of their CB Zello chats. It's like it's like I was listening to part of the, like, as I asked people to send me a bunch of clips for tomorrow's show. Don't worry, we got them. And it was like a series of people like singing Kumbaya, Amazing Grace, and then a troll would come in with like Ram Ranch cranked up to 10. And I was like, stop with the Ram Ranch, enough with the gay sex. And everybody's like, no, we're gonna keep doing Ram Ranch. But it's you literally get a real feel for the dogma attached to this that legitimately comes down to the idea that they are not obligated to be citizens for people in this country. They're obligated to be citizens for people in their religion / cult. And this, like, the extreme of the extremes in this cult, highly born again evangelical, to like Orthodox almost, to the point where you're like, you can't even talk to them. Like, it's like, it doesn't, because you know what's riding on this for all these guys? I don't know if you know this: eternal salvation, guys, the afterlife. Yeah. That's why they don't want to get this.
Yeah,
They're
this is
there
this is
to
just
prove
God's
to the
waiting
government.
room.
Exactly.
Isn't
They're
there
there
a
to prove to the
rule of
government
being
they're
a
not
cock
interested.
in the Bible, Will?
Yeah. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not boast. Corinthians.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
1
you're not
Corinthians
even
13.
supposed to
I
tell
know that's
people about
not
your religion.
actually one of the things on the tablets. Don't be a cock, but it's essentially that, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, these people are so fucked that you could tell them that the Bible tells you to be a good human being, and they still wouldn't do it because they're fucking crazy, right? They're mentally insane. Anyway, thanks, Caryma.
Thank you.
Appreciate you doing this. What'd you make of the Bernie Farber stuff, by the way?
I have also fallen into the trap of sharing something too quickly before
It happened to me
thinking about
yesterday
it.
with that post.
So, I can't be hypocritical, but I'm loath to give a win to John Kay. But what I will say is that there's so much actual racist and anti-Semitic shit happening here that putting out false news really detracts from that, and I think is quite harmful. So that's the
it works
unfortunate
against
part.
it. That's why Dean was
Totally.
so angry, right? Like, you're not. If the message does need to be that we need to have a conversation about the racism that is there, by presenting stuff that isn't there, all you're doing is you're setting yourself back. That was part of the reason why I was so upset at the front end of this protest, was that I think that there's going to be an element of the public officials that make decisions to pull mandates that are not going to want to give them any satisfaction that what they did worked, and they're going to hold us to the mandates longer. And we were on the verge of coming back. There's been conversations, and all they're doing is they're making it worse. Because that's the way I would look at it. If I was a public official, I would go, fuck you, we're going another 2 months. Right? Like, and that's how we're all wired. We're all wired like that.
Same.
Holy.
One kid, you're all staying in for recess.
I'm not wrong. Yeah. Am I wrong?
Oh no, dude. This weekend, 2 tweets that got the most attention were more mandates and more mandates. And the only reason why I tweeted that twice was for the same reason that you would extend it for another 2 months. It's like, well, no one wants this. Like, we all fucking hate it. And there is no lockdown. Everybody hates restrictions. We understand it, but it's like you have to. And we need to get out of that business, I think. You know what I mean? And Caryma brings up a good point. Have I been caught sharing something that I was a little quick on the heel for? No. But we got to be better about what we're trying to fucking attack too, right? What's that? Well, for sure you have. Probably.
I did it, and I did it with that post last night, and it was James, actually. James, our James, sent me a DM real quick and said, "Hey, I don't think that's." And I looked at him like, "Holy shit!" And I went, I ended up. It had already been retweeted. People had replied. Yeah. I had to explain it. I'm like, "Guys, I'm sorry."
But you went and explained it like a guy. Like, the thing about Bernie is that I think he does this a lot. Like, he didn't explain it. He didn't apologize. I get that it might have been a mistake, but fuck, that's your job. You had one fucking job as the president of the Canadian Anti-Hate Organization, to not put out fake hate, right?
Yeah.
It's so out of touch with what actually needs to happen, and it undermines, the credibility of what, certainly what I'm trying to do here, which is highlight the real stuff that's happening. So,
the real stuff, right? That wasn't real. Like, none of it was real. Anyway. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Caryma, thank you. I know you had 2 podcasts with us today, right? You wasted 3 hours with the Dean Blundell Network, so we'll let you go and smoke that Halifax weed. Sorry.
No, I had a blast.
Love you, Caryma.
Always. Bye.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Good to see you.
Caryma Saad, ladies and gentlemen.
Jesus.
The lovely Caryma Saad.
I know you're going to want to pull the pin here real quick. Can I get a plug in for our Pink Shirt Day discussion?
Please.
Okay, we announced this morning. We're doing it on the Dean Blundell Podcast Network, so it'll be very similar to what you're watching right now, and it will feature
male pornos.
My little buddy James P. White. Okay,
little pony.
The Pink Shirt Day discussion. Join Jimmy and friends in the fight to end bullying, and he will be joined by 2 Olympians, Jesse Lumsden, who not only is an Olympian, but also played in the CFL, an amazing
Friend of the
football
show.
Friend of the show. Mercedes Nickel, who is we had her on the podcast last week. She is a snowboarder. She has been to 4 Olympics, if I'm not mistaken. And then Kelly Ferlardo, who is a burn survivor and a TED speaker. And she is based out of Edmonton. She was burnt badly as a child and has a very, very unique story dealing with bullying, having been, grew up, severely burnt from a very young age. And Jesse and Mercedes both have incredible stories. We actually touched on it with Jesse in this podcast about bullying and about the internet and about, the conversation needed to have, around regulating or Dewey or whatnot. So this will be an interesting conversation. So it's February 23rd. My little buddy, James B. White, has a great story. Going right back to his childhood. He was actually hospitalized due to bullying twice in his life in school. And it's a major topic still to this day. A lot of people are dealing with it. And we're looking at you, teachers. We're looking at you, parents. We're looking at you. If you just want to join in and watch it, there'll be, a little bit of a presentation at the front end, and then there'll be questions. And what I can do is I can send you the link on the web page. It's with the Dean
We'll
Blundell
post it.
Podcast Network. Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
make a blog post out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't mind? That'd be awesome.
No, fuck no, not at all. I love it.
So
we'll talk after the show.
Perfect. And so there's we put a page up on Cruise that has a form to fill out, and all the form does is just alert us that you would like us to send you the link that morning so you can tune in and watch it. It'll be 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. That's you're 2 hours ahead in Ontario. Last year we sent out 15 links, and I think it was about between 40 and 45 classrooms that actually tuned in to Jimmy's presentation.
Awesome.
This year, bigger and better. I want to thank Dean and Rook and Ryan and everybody on this podcast and the network for helping us put this together as well. I mean, as soon as I mentioned it to Dean, he was like, we're all over this. And then, last year it was on Zoom. This year it'll be on this, which is just so much more accessible. And it's just, I'm very excited.
Yeah,
about
it's easier.
It. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, we are too. You've put a ton of work into this. You and Lacey and the group at 95.7 Cruise FM in Edmonton, and of course Jimmy and Grant and everybody involved. And we're just happy that we get to kind of be a small part of it. And I think that these are the real conversations that we sometimes have to have. And like we look at other adults and we say, oh, your life's fine, you're 45, but you don't know what they've been through, and the source of inspiration that can come from somebody like Jimmy or someone like Jesse, who actually reached out to us to be a part of this. And I think it was,
said, I want in. Yeah.
Jesse's a great guy.
Yeah, and he's a wonderful guy. He's an Oski Wee Wee guy too. There you go. He played for the
Mac Marauder.
He's a Mac Marauder, legendary football player, legendary Olympic athlete, and one of the more legendary individuals you'll ever meet too. Like,
awesome.
One of the nicest human beings alive. So he's reached out. Mercedes Nichols, you pointed out, and of course the young lady from Edmonton that was burned badly and suffered years and years of torment just from people because she just looked the way she did, which is tough. And I think, and
has gone through hundreds of surgeries.
Yeah.
So not just they could take the bullying out of it, just what she's had to endure just to exist. Right.
Yeah.
Like we're so lucky. And even and I'll say this because Jimmy, I'm pretty hard on the little guy. I mean, we're like brothers. We tease each other mercilessly and we get underneath each other's skin. But I'll tell you that little fucker, man, he wouldn't be where he is without what his experiences are. And the fact that he's aware of that, I think is just huge for me, that he accepts that. He wouldn't change a thing. You ask him, would you want to, like, they gave him an option when he was a kid to go through surgeries to add, some height to him. He said, no, this is who I am. This is who I am, and this is who I'm going to be. And that's the kind of character that Jimmy is, right? And his message, his story is awesome. And in a classroom setting, man, I've seen it. I've witnessed it. It's one of the few times where I take a back seat and I just let him go. I've watched this kid in front of a group of kids, and they love him. And he's awesome with it. And he's got a great story, right?
Yeah, he
great.
does.
I'll put something out on my Twitter too, because I've got a big contingency of teachers because of the coverage that we did earlier this year with the pandemic stuff, and a lot of them are teachers and school board members and stuff. I'll send out a mass message as well, and I'll send them the link, and if anybody wants to jump in, or if they're watching, I know a lot of them watch the show, so reach
out to me too. Any of my social media, just send me a quick note, and I'll fire you the link. If it's easier, you can just go to our webpage 957cruisefm.ca, and it's right on there. There's a banner. Click on it; it'll take you to the page.
And this is open to individuals, schools, anybody. And there's a couple things. No swearing in this, right? We're going to not swear because the kids.
No, yeah. Well, Jimmy, Jesse, Mercedes, and Kelly won't swear.
Okay.
I mean, and that.
So are you going to be on it? Because that's when we might see some swearing.
I am not.
How you doing, you little fuckers?
Anybody ever piss in a Best Western hot tub?
Hey, hands up if you ever peed in a hot tub here, kids.
First off, it's not like I'm standing above it. You're making it sound like I've got,
Well, you admitted you piss in every hot tub you ever go in. I didn't know if you pissed when you were in it or if you stood up at the top and had a leak and then got in.
We're ever at a hotel together.
Just some weird kink or something.
I got a big smile on my face.
High five. Thanks, dude. Great to see you. Lachlan Cross, 95.7 Cruise FM in Edmonton, 957cruisefm.ca to sign up for the Pink Shirt Day anti-bullying symposium that he and his radio station and Jimmy are putting on with a couple of Olympic athletes. I think it's kind of a good time. We've seen a ton of that. It's Bully City all weekend long online. It was Bully City.
Yeah.
We bullies tell people what to do. It's okay to not have a fucking opinion and just shut up and listen. So I really am looking forward to that with Jimmy and that whole crew that day. So thanks for doing that. I appreciate it. Lachlan Cross on Twitter. Anytime at Lachlan Cross on Twitter and 95.7 Cruise FM in Edmonton. That's Ryan Lindley at Ryan Lindley on Twitter. Sheeple Shepherd Podcast. Hit subscribe. Thanks, boys. We'll talk to you soon.
Love you guys.
Talk to you soon. Love you too. All the best. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. Thank you. Don't forget, you can find us at deanblundell.com. Sign up for a newsletter there. That'd be awesome. Thanks to our sponsors at Easy Auto Financial. Easy Auto Financial, helping you get in a vehicle. You love cars. You need a car. Everybody has to have a car. You got to get around. How do you get a car with bad credit? EasyAutoFinancial.ca. They don't care about your credit. They care about getting you in the vehicle that you want. And trusted people that don't want to fleece you. They don't even charge you for your financing. They just get you the car you want at the price you want to pay and the financing that you need. Go to EasyAutoFinancial.ca today. Also, thanks to our friends at domination.com. Dominate with your content, DMNTN.com. 70 pieces of content in under 5 minutes. Super simple. If you game, stream, etc., and you need a place to do promos, it takes up too much time. Try them today for free. Domination.com, DMNTN.com. And of course, Ed's Fine Imports is Gitch, the best. Ed's underwear, boxer briefs, fellas, you cannot miss with these things. All you got to do is put them on you. They got the pouch in the front, luxury underwear, Canadian made. Order a pair today. In fact, if you order 3, he'll send you a pair for free. edsfineimports.com, promo code GITCH, and the number 3. Thanks, everybody. I think that's it for us. We'll be back tomorrow on this very program. James will be back. Ryan will be back. Lachlan will be back. I'll be in the front. Remember those jokes with your dad? I'll be right back. Your dad's like, I'll be left front. Thanks, Dad. Funny, eh? That's what you say all the time. Not really. I'll be left front. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.